Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Big Jiu-Jitsu Show. I'm Rob,
I'm Randy.
and we have another guest for you this week. We have Mr. Jake Clark of Wrestle Jitsu fame and a lot of grappling experience. I'm really excited to talk about that today. So, Jake, thanks for coming on the show today.
Hey, excited to be a part of this. I've been able to listen to a handful of the episodes now after Sean was on, and I love what you guys are doing. And I appreciate we're going to go 2 hours today, right?
Four.
Everybody's got
Four.
everybody's got coffee, right?
Yeah, I've got my giant tankard of water. Was it DoorDash, Starbucks, or something?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I've got a house full of kids right now. I could use a 4 hour break of talking grappling. Please help. No.
Perfect. Yeah, we're gonna do 7 hours today of grappling conversation. We're gonna beat out Joe Rogan's longest podcast.
Yes, let's do it.
All right. So, but before we get started, like I say, and I appreciate listening to our show. Can you give people kind of a background on how you got started with grappling and what's kind of led up to where you are right now?
Yeah, well, I first started wrestling when I was 4 years old. I know that's like hard for a lot of people they think, oh, 4 years old, they're just running around playing games, whatever. But honestly, right at about 4 years old, things clicked with me. I would go to practice. My older brother was in wrestling, 4 years older than I was, and I'd be on the side of the mat with the other little brothers, and eventually made my way out to the middle of the mat, and it was just something that clicked, and been doing it a long time now. So my wrestling career has kind of taken me all over the world and everything. Been doing that most of my life, but the jiu-jitsu side of things for me started about 15 years ago. And again, my brother was the one that led me into that. So yeah, I don't want to get too far ahead of this stuff here, but with the jiu-jitsu side of things, I was living out at the Olympic Training Center. I'd been a part of a handful of the Olympic training cycles. I was a resident out in Colorado Springs, and we got a phone call. One of the coaches got a phone call out there, and they're looking for a wrestler that could go work with these UFC fighters that were in Hawaii. This is right around 2005 maybe. So it wasn't as big as it is now. And it was this person named BJ Penn that needed some wrestling help out there in Hawaii. And so I called my brother, who had just gotten out of the military and was starting a fighting career of himself up here in Minnesota. And my brother ended up linking up with them, went out to Hawaii, and then eventually brought me out there to go train with those guys too. So, yeah.
That's a wild, it's fun because I was talking to somebody, like you talk about kind of the old school guys and
Yeah.
you bring them a name. Like I said Chris Howder and they go, who is that? And I was like, oh my God, dude. Like, have I really been doing it this long that I've hit the old guy status? So talking about '05 BJ, because that was when he started on his tear too, wasn't it?
Oh, he was an animal, but it wasn't that big of a thing then. Still a lot of people were hesitant to watch MMA because it was pretty intense, and that's it was the early days of that. My brother had been a part of so many of his different training camps, and they were like, hey, we're looking for another training partner. So I ended up flying out there. It was supposed to be for like 2 weeks. And every time that I'd go out to work with BJ, it was supposed to be like a 2 week thing. And I'd stay for like 2 months. the end of the 2 week training cycle. And they're like, hey, if you can stay a little bit longer, we'd love to have you. And I was like, yeah, I can stay. I'll figure it out. Let me keep staying out here. And so it was just such an awesome experience. I mean, the first time I went, my first ever sparring was with BJ Penn. My first ever spar, and I've never even done striking or nothing, and I was just a wrestler at this time, no jiu-jitsu or anything. And BJ's doing 5 minute rounds, and everybody's rotating in on him, and they're like, "All right, here you go, put these on." And I put boxing gloves on. That was my first time ever wearing those things. I can't grab anybody with those things on.
Yeah.
I've got a big head. I mean, I don't think this is on video, but for people that can't see, my head's pretty big. It's tough to block this big thing. And BJ was just picking me apart. And I finally got done with the first 5 minute round. And I just couldn't hang on to him or nothing. And then they're like, hey, we need you to do one more round. And I was trying to get these gloves off so fast, but I couldn't do it because no fingers or nothing. And it was an experience to say the least. But I'm very grateful for those guys out there, and they opened my eyes up to the jiu-jitsu side of things, which has then played a pretty big role in my life since then. So, yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, it's funny how back in the day, these fighters were so much more accessible to people that were into that. And obviously now it's blown up and that's not the case anymore. And it's funny, like what Rob said, BJ Penn is such a huge name to so many of us, but this new generation, there's some people probably don't even know who BJ Penn is anymore.
No, that's for sure.
And like I was a big Jens Pulver fan, so I wasn't as much on the BJ side.
Mhm.
They had kind of had that rivalry back in
Yeah.
the day. That might have been even who he had you preparing him for if he had you doing a bunch of wrestling, right? Because
Yeah, I think I started with George St. Pierre, the second GSP fight is
okay,
the one
okay,
that I.
so later
Yeah,
after, yeah,
yeah.
because
But my brother was there with for Jens and those guys. So
yeah,
yeah,
because Jens was a big sprawl and brawl kind of guy. That was kind of the style back then, and then each style had its era, right?
yeah.
And now we're back to I think some of that wrestling integrated MMA, but that's super cool. So what about so you're wrestling when you said you wrestled starting at 4? Like where did wrestling take you? Tell us a little bit more about the wrestling journey prior to getting this phone call.
Yeah, so wrestling in Minnesota, it's a pretty big sport. We start fairly young up here, and uh, again, right off the bat, I mean, it just clicked with me, and I was winning, and and who doesn't like to win? So if you win young and early, you're going, oh, this is the coolest thing ever, and so it just made me want more, and I just wanted to keep working harder, and from there, things took off. I was a part of a really good program up here. I had a lot of great coaches. One thing that was always important to me is that I was learning from so many different people, and that's one thing I've learned in the jujitsu side of things. At least what I've seen, a lot of people kind of stay under the same group of people for I don't know their entire career of jujitsu. Which Sean and I talk about this a lot, and it's being in the military and bouncing around. It's impossible for us to stay with the same group. You're always moving around and everything. Well, in the wrestling world, that's what you do. You train under so many different people to kind of build your style up. And so even at a young age, I had some of the greatest coaches, and I was very lucky to be in that situation. But went training through high school and everything. I won my first national title at 16 years old. That's the Cadet Nationals. It's our first major age group national title at that time. So my first opportunity to do that, I won the national title. I won it again 2 years later at the next age group, and things were taking off. I ended up going to college to wrestle Division One, University of Minnesota. Ever since I was a young kid, my coaches were a lot of the Gopher wrestlers, so that's where I wanted to go. I went there to wrestle, but I didn't go there to go to school. So that was part of the problem. So, going to college for sports, you still got to do some classes. And I was falling behind on some of that stuff. Well, my brother was in the Marine Corps. He went into the Marine Corps straight out of high school. And again, I followed in his footsteps. I went out to Quantico, Virginia. That's where the Marine Corps wrestling team was based out of. So I ended up making the Marine Corps wrestling team, was able to train and live with my brother out there for several years of my time in the Marines. And while we were in the Marine Corps, I ended up making Team USA and won a couple more national titles. During that time, I was on the Olympic ladder for most of my time in. So in the Marines, we would have our normal jobs. I wasn't Rambo kicking doors in, none of that stuff. I was a computer guy. And so when we'd have a break in some of our training for that, we'd be back with the team wrestling, traveling around, putting on wrestling clinics all over the country and kind of working with the recruiting side of things. So it was just such an awesome experience there. But at that time, I made it to number 2 for the 2004 Olympic Games in Athens. So I was the Olympic alternate for that. I was living out at the Olympic Training Center, and just wrestling kept taking me a little further and further. And I ended up participating in the Olympic trials from 2000, 2004, 2008, 2012, 2016, 2020, which turned into 2021 because of COVID. They backed it up, and that was for Tokyo. And so I set the record for the most consecutive Olympic trial entrances in our sport. So, which kind of honored to do. And, one of the reasons I've been able to do it that long is because I love it. I love it. And luckily, my body's been pretty healthy for the most part. I mean, you're not going to be able to see this, but as I get up, I'll kind of limp away, but that's normal. So, yeah, I mean, wrestling took me all over the world. I've been to about 60 different countries, participated in the World Cup and won the World Cup in 2007 over in Turkey. But I've been to world championships and at all different age groups, and just been a great sport for me. I like to think too, like if this was the NFL, I'd be a Pro Bowl NFL player, have lots of money, but because I'm a wrestler, I don't. I don't have much of that. I'm
Well, you still got to go
yeah.
to Hawaii though, so close to
Yeah, no,
Provo,
that's
right?
see, but that's the thing, and that's what I tell people is like, look, I was living the life of like a broke rock star. It was great. So yeah, it was good times, and I am extremely grateful for the sport of wrestling and what it's done for me. Yeah.
No, that's really cool because you know, it's not very often like you talk about the Olympic trials multiple times. Like, one of our wrestling coaches in high school did it once. And like he didn't make it, like, but he would still ragdoll me constantly. It was hilarious. But just the caliber of wrestling that you've got to experience and like that you're in is just insane. And that, pardon me, like I said earlier, we all got our sniffles or whatever. It's that time of year. But with that being said, you've you've worked with high level jujitsu people as well, like obviously BJ Penn and stuff. So I know the name of your school is Wrestle Jitsu. Is when did you start kind of incorporating both with together? I mean, I know it's like a very like obvious thing, like, well, you have grappling experience, you're going to use that for your jujitsu, but like,
Yeah.
what kind of drove the game? Is it more jujitsu game drove the wrestling after that, or is wrestling absolutely what is the pinnacle, and you just add jujitsu into it?
For sure. I've just sprinkled some jujitsu into the wrestling game, I'd say. But so I told you my first time sparring with gloves on or anything, that was with BJ Penn. At the time, I think he was the UFC champ and just one of the top fighters at that time. And my first time rolling in jujitsu was there was a guy, Lucas Light. He's pretty big deal. I didn't know this, but like I didn't know who any of these guys were. I'm a wrestler. Social media really was. I think we were still on MySpace in those days, so there was no such thing as reels where you're getting to be exposed to so many different people. And so I'm rolling with Lucas. There's Rafael Tractor Oliveira, another UFC fighter. These guys are black belts straight from Brazil. These guys are my roommates. BJ Penn, his brothers Reagan and JD Penn. These guys are all black belts. There was this little kid about 16 years old that was coming in, so I was like, at least I can whoop up on this little guy. And his name was Keenan Cornelius. He lived right down the street from BJ. His dad was the one that got BJ into jiu-jitsu. And so Keenan, thankfully, I was able to beat up on him before he really took off and became an adult. So I don't know, maybe I could get in trouble for beating up on a 16-year-old. I'm not sure, but this group of people, I mean, BJ was flying in all these top fighters just from different styles, but a lot of the jiu-jitsu people, I remember we had like the Mendez brothers were in there.
Wow.
We had just so many of these people, and I never got to roll with white belts or nothing. They throw me right into these black belts, and I think what I learned is how to survive. And that is super important. So, and maybe Sean would tell you that, like I'm very protective of letting people get an advantage on me, any kind of position. When it comes to wrestling, we want to be on top. So yes, in jujitsu, you might go to your back, and people are like, "Hey, you got to be comfortable going to your back." I still am not comfortable being on my back. If I'm on my back, I want to get out and I want to get on top, and just to take that wrestling aspect and kind of lead with that. So then I remember after a handful of camps, finally BJ and those guys, they were opening up a gym in Honolulu, and so they said, "Hey, look, we're looking for a wrestling guy to come in and help open this gym up. So I jumped at that and I moved out to Hawaii full time. And I was trying to bounce around to some other gyms to learn about jujitsu a little more. I still really had never done like a jujitsu practice. I'd never put a gi on. It was all MMA based, so no gi. And I remember going to a jiu-jitsu gym, and this guy from Brazil is like, "Hey man, you need to forget your wrestling." And I was like, "Dude, I can't forget it. Like it's been doing it my whole life." And it kind of turned me off that they were trying to show me all these other things, which I get, and like I respect the person that has the higher belt and all that to a certain point. But I said, "Hey, I finally found another guy that was had a wrestling background. And I was like, hey, show me a couple things from wrestling that I can use in jiu-jitsu. And I mean, it kind of took off from there. And also with that original crew, BJ, the Mendez brothers, Lucas, Tractor, all these people, man, at the time I had no idea how lucky I was. But these guys were, we would exchange ideas. It was like, hey, look at in wrestling, this is what I'm going for here. So then they would kind of adjust and kind of use some different jujitsu for that, or I'd teach them some of the wrestling that helps their jujitsu, and they did the same thing for me. So a lot of the times in working with these UFC camps, they would have me watch DVDs. These were DVDs back in the day where they'd have a DVD of the person they're fighting, and I would go watch them. And when it came to training, I would try to break down their wrestling. So like John Fitch, a handful of these other people, I'd show these guys, hey, this is what their wrestling position is. Here's how we can get out of it. Here's how we can stay away from it. Or here's how we can kind of expose a weakness in that and use that to their advantage. So it was a fun game of a lot of great minds working together. And when you get some good people working together, amazing things can happen. So yeah, so that's kind of the jiu-jitsu thing kind of kicked off from there. And I was out in Hawaii and just trying to learn more of what jiu-jitsu was. And I remember I put the gi on for the first time. I struggled with the belt, as most people do. And then they had me doing all these different warm-ups down the mat. And I was like 45 minutes into practice. I'm like, hey, I'm done with it. Like, let's throw down, you guys. Come on. But of course, as most white belt people have to do, you're shrimping up and down the mat, I don't know, for 30 minutes, it felt like. But now, going back to all of my first experiences, like these are all black belt guys that I first started training with. We're not doing any of that. So all of a sudden I've been training with the elite fighters, and then I go to a jiu-jitsu practice and they're like, well, you're a white belt, so you need to do all this stuff. And I'm going, this is so boring. No offense to anybody, but I'd done that when I was 4 years old. And like, I wanted to get after it. Well, I wasn't a spastic white belt though, I promise.
No, I believe that. That's and that's kind of like my attitude with the whole thing. I know Randy agrees too, because Randy hates warm-ups, but it's also because he does the eco thing, and that's obviously another subject. But no, it's if somebody comes in with experience, I feel like that's kind of a blessing, honestly, whether it's wrestling, judo, sambo, whatever, right? Because in my experience with teaching people, it's been one of the hardest things to get used to is this whole like grabbing another person and then being okay with like close body connection on a lot of it. And that alone, I feel like that breaks up like 2 years of, at least in jiu-jitsu, like 2 years of just comfort on the mats.
Yeah.
Where if you have no experience, I feel like it will take you those 2 years to get to a point where you're like, oh yeah, this is just, you're all over the place. Right. But
yeah,
I see how that could be absolutely annoying. Like very, very, very much so, because it's, it's taken away from grappling, and good grappling is just good grappling, no matter like what it is, right?
Yeah. So. Yeah, and I think that was the thing for me too, is like being thrown in with these legends of the jiu-jitsu game right off the bat. As I said, I had to survive. So if I put my hand on the wrong spot, I learned real quick, and I became a cautious grappler, but I really have stuck with my wrestling game, especially the Greco-Roman side of it, where you're keeping your elbows in, you're not extending, you're not being overly aggressive. It's more tactical, technical, and I've really brought that into the jiu-jitsu side of things. And I ended up going to like my first jiu-jitsu competition was a Naga back in Honolulu, and I'm a white belt, and they're like, I go to sign up and I was like, hey, I'm signing up. And, this wasn't all done online at this time either. It was just you show up, sign up, all that kind of stuff. And I tell them, I'm like, yeah, they're like, what belt are you? I'm like, white. And I said, but I want to go purple belt. And they're looking at me and they're like, okay, all right, And I mean, I had cauliflower ear and all that kind of stuff, but they thought I was probably just being a punk. And so I got in. I won purple belt as a white belt, and when we went up on the podium, they wouldn't let me wear my white belt. They're like, "Well, you can't wear that up there. That's disrespectful." And I was like, "Hey guys, like, then give me a purple belt. Come on, like, I don't know." So there's a lot. Excuse me. There's a lot of things like that were kind of frustrating, but I ended up getting my first loss shortly after that. It was a guy named Jeremy Nita out in Honolulu. He's black belt, got his own gym out there. He's a sponsored athlete, all this kind of stuff, and he caught me in an arm bar, and that's he got me. I've tried to tell those the fight to win guy. I was like, hey, look, let's get a rematch with this guy. So I have not been submitted since then. No joke, not even in practice, nothing. I am very cautious. I've rolled with so many different black belts and everything. So there'll be some 5 to 10 minute rounds that are kind of a stalemate to me, especially as a blue belt at the time or a purple belt. That's a win. If I'm going up against a black belt and they can't submit me in that 10 minutes and we're holding good, stalemate positions, hey, that's kind of a win for me. But so I've been hoping to get a rematch against Jeremy. I've reached out to him as well, like, hey, let's do this one more time. Now we're both old, but now I understand jiu-jitsu a lot more. So hopefully one of these days I get my rematch against him. But other than that, I was jumping into the competitions, and I was still a white belt. And I started wrestle jitsu out in Hawaii because a lot of these jiu-jitsu guys were coming up to me like, hey, can you teach us the wrestling? So I opened up my own little club, and then I learned, well, I better start getting promoted because all these other people there, when they would come over to me, they're like, well, hey, how do you get promoted here? And I was like, well, we don't really get promoted. We just come in and train and we throw down and we work with each other and we just get better. But then I learned that the jiu-jitsu business plan is kind of an important thing to a lot of people. Never has been to me, like private sessions, people always ask about that. And I'm like, look, just be a member here. If you're a member here, I want to help you. I want to work with you. If you come into this gym, I want to help you get better. I don't want to be like, well, I know some extra secrets, but you got to pay $150 an hour and I'll work with you one-on-one. And, I never got into that side of things. And, but yeah, it's been a fun experience nonetheless. So, yeah.
I mean, we've said it before on other episodes that good grappling is good grappling. And, you look at the rule sets, I think a lot of times are what really start to separate out different grappling arts. Because if you take all those out, like let's just say you came up with a format of grappling, you just say, okay, we're not going to strike, but all grappling formats are allowed. All submissions are allowed. Good grappling is going to win, right? It doesn't matter if it came from wrestling, if it came from jiu-jitsu, if it came from sambo or judo or pancration or whatever you want to go and look at, the good grappling is going to win out. And so, I agree. We've had this conversation about belts too, in other episodes, and we're all the same opinion. Like, yeah, we've got our black belts, and I'm proud that I earned that over time. But it's not a magical power. It doesn't bestow things onto you. The mats don't lie. You still have to go out there and hold your own. There's still going to be purple belts that are going to beat me. There's still going to be brown belts that are going to beat me. There's still going to be wrestlers that are going to give me a fit and stay on top. And, they may not have a submission if they haven't trained any type of submission art, but they're going to be able to dominate positionally and put up a fight. And that's still good grappling. So, I just don't really subscribe to all that stuff either. And I think it is the business side of things, and you have to respect it, and it keeps people coming back for more. And, it's all that. Let me ask you this. So when you talk about playing defensive wrestling, defensive jiu-jitsu, and you're going against some of the best in the world, right? Because we're talking about good grappling, winning regardless, and you just gave several testaments to that being the case. What are some things that you look for fundamentally or conceptually to keep yourself safe against the highest level jiu-jitsu practitioners in the world as a wrestler?
I protect my feet. Nobody touches my toes. I don't know. Like, nobody gets to my feet. And that's something Sean and I have some good laughs with it. And he's always trying to get to my feet, but I know for wrestlers, that is our kryptonite. I remember, and I probably have trauma from it, but it was Brock Lesnar and Frank Mir. So in college, I was a freshman. Brock was a senior, so I was around him a little bit in the college side of things. And I remember watching his fight against Mir, and Mir got down to his foot, and it's like, how did that guy beat that guy? Well, the kryptonite for wrestlers. You get to our feet a lot of the time, especially for wrestlers that haven't been around the jiu-jitsu side of things for too long. And that's, like now I see a lot of these people, they jump right into like a 50-50 position. And I'm going, now that's playing the game. I'm too competitive for that. Like I cannot let somebody get into a 50-50 position with me, wrestling or jiu-jitsu. So 50-50 in wrestling would be like an over-under position, both of us locked up. Now, a lot of people think, well, that's Greco because you're going to get big throws. Well, that's dangerous Greco. Like I want to win. So I'm going to, if I'm in a 50-50 position, I got to get out of that. I want to be in a dominant position at all times. So in jujitsu, people will pull guard. Well, I'm not going to step in there how you see a lot of the textbook jujitsu things. I'm not going to go right into this book. Like if I play by the book, I'm going to step into some traps. I'm going to give people that I go outside of the book and I drop down with them. And now I'm pummeling down on the ground with my hands against their feet, just keeping tight and keeping control, not extending over, not getting my butt off of my heels and just holding a really good base. And eventually just trying to hand fight down there and kind of wear them out in Greco-Roman wrestling. So that's Randy Couture, Dan Henderson, those guys, again, some of these legends from the earlier days. That's what we're known for, is that dirty box kind of pummeling, staying in there, just working on your opponent's shoulders, grinding them into the ground. And when I was living at the Olympic Training Center, one of the things that we'd do probably every couple months was our grind match. And the grind match, I think it was 90 straight minutes. Sometimes I think we did 2 hours. And it's like, okay, get a partner, ready, wrestle. And that's it. No real rules. Like if you get some down your back, you could hold them there for 90 minutes. But you didn't want to do that. You wanted to pound that person into the ground. I remember one time, one of the wrestlers pushed the other guy over to the door to go out into the lobby and pushed him through those fire doors. So that other wrestler was in the lobby and the other wrestler was standing right in the doorway, like, all right, let's keep coming at me. And the guy went around to a back door and came in the other side. I mean, this was intense. And this isn't like everybody's laughing. That's like, it was serious. It was like, hey, I just pushed you out of this room, and mentally breaking people like that was part of the grind match. And that's what Randy Couture, Dan Henderson, Matt Linland, all those guys went through that kind of thing. And I know that's what helped put them up to that level. And I think I've really learned a lot from those guys and from the same coaches. Matt Linland was actually a coach of mine for a bit. He was a competitor. I competed against Matt Linland, but then he was also a coach of mine. But yeah, I think, some of those wrestling tactics I've really brought into the jiu-jitsu game to play it smart, and I don't want to get into a 50-50 position, like that's giving that person an opportunity to score or to win. I want to keep the advantage as much as I can.
No, it's a good viewpoint because, it's funny to me because this is a lot of examples. I'm like, oh man, this is like during the peak. I remember this shit like it was yesterday. Like I would like to thank Frank Mir though for helping me win quite a few bets against people on that match. I was like, not because amazing. I was like, I think Frank Mir might submit him. And they're like, bullshit. It's from Brock Lesnar. I was like, but that's true. I mean, thinking back to a lot of wrestlers I've worked with, it's like that weird territory that you talked about. That's something that you guys just wrestlers don't deal with. But like once you get that jujitsu experience, then it opens up and then you figure out like, oh, these leg locks are pretty dangerous. And I mean, I
love that puzzle. I love the puzzle of that, trying to figure these things out. I have a lot of fun with it. Like after wrestling my whole life, and all of a sudden I throw jiu-jitsu in, and I'm learning some new thing, and it's a different sport. Now I've got to make adjustments. It made it exciting for me again, and I can't imagine Frank having to take those lunchbox fists coming at your face over and over, but being like, I'm just going to trust the plan here, and goodness, much respect to him. I'm sure he's probably still feeling that those punches to this day, but
Oh yeah. I remember like even when they did the face off in the ring or the cage.
yeah,
I forgot which commentator was like, yeah, they actually had to specially make these gloves for Brock Lesnar since the sizes didn't exist. I'm like,
yeah,
he might kill him actually now that I think about it, like hitting him.
yeah.
But no, that is cool. Like it's very interesting to see like high level wrestlers move into like grappling or combat sports like MMA. And not saying wrestling's not a combat sport. I truly believe it is. But the transition over with that. So kind of going back to your Naga experience where it was, oh, that's disrespectful to wear your white belt up there. I know something that we've talked a lot about too is just kind of the culture of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu versus a lot of other grappling arts. And I mean, it's kind of a weird thing where we try to pride ourselves in this whole like counterculture, like skateboarder, surfer type, we're
Yeah.
just who we are type stuff. But yet we still run into these problems, or at least maybe not so much problems, but issues of like you talk about, like this white belt who's been a national champion in wrestling, just dominated two purple belts who maybe have 3 to 5 years experience. So, but because you're a white belt, it's now disrespectful for you to show off that
Yeah.
you're a white belt. Like,
Yeah.
and we try to distance ourselves from like that traditional martial arts thinking, like with your academy and the way you run wrestle jitsu and stuff like that. Like, do you guys do gi? Do you guys like kind of just treat it like grappling and like just like
Yeah, no,
how's it work?
we mix it up. We mix it up. We have even some practices we'll have a couple people in gi, a couple people in no gi. We'll have a couple people with wrestling shoes on. Heck, it's we try to work with everybody, no matter what style they're coming in. We've got a couple judo guys too, and like I love it. Like they'll come in and all of a sudden working with maybe a former high school wrestler, and they'll throw a little judo action into it and throw that wrestler off, and then that wrestler's like, "Wait, what did you just do?" And so I think a lot of people, especially wrestlers that get into jiu-jitsu post wrestling, a lot of times they're like, man, I wish I would have known some of this stuff, or even some of the judo stuff they learned, because you can use that in wrestling. And so that's kind of what I've tried to do is I take a lot of the jujitsu things that I've learned that are legal for the wrestling side of things, and I use it. Now, some of these things go against what we've been taught to do as wrestlers. And I'm like, well, sometimes there's a reason, there's an exception to a lot of things. And yes, I know you've been told to do this your whole career in wrestling, but watch, just for this move, make that adjustment and see if it works for you. And there's a lot of these things in jiu-jitsu that work great for wrestling, and a lot of the wrestling things that work great for jiu-jitsu. And going back to the whole belt thing, I just wanted to chime in on that. But I remember, again, being in Hawaii, and there's one of my best friends out there, Jason Godwise. He fought in like UFC, I don't know, 15 or something like that. He's a wrestling background, but this dude started jujitsu, gosh, I don't know, early 90s. Was living down in Brazil, couch surfing with people down there. He'll tell you all these names of people. Podcast wise, you guys should look into having him on one time. An amazing person. And Jason and he was a white belt. He fought in the UFC, but he was like 50 years old, but he fought in the UFC. He's the most knowledgeable white belt ever. It's got to be. And we would bounce around to open mats out there in Hawaii, and nobody would roll with us. And we weren't trying to hurt people, but like I'd try to go over to these black belts sitting on the side and like, hey, let's go, let's do a round. Oh no, 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 I'm taking a break this round. All of a sudden, I go to the next person, and I look back, and that person's out there rolling, and it's like, for me, dude, you're a black belt. I want to learn from you. I'm not trying to come in here and hurt you. I have no intention on that. Even in wrestling, like I never want to hurt anybody, even in jiu-jitsu. I just want to win. If I hurt you, you can be like, oh, he caught me. I got hurt, so you didn't really win. I want to win with no excuse for anybody, right? So this would happen all the time. And we'd go to these open mats, and my buddy and I would end up rolling with each other most of the time. And it's like, and to me, that's one thing that I've noticed in the jiu-jitsu world that is very different from the wrestling side of things. If I'm out at the Olympic Training Center and I see an Olympic champion sitting in the corner and I can be like, hey, let's go this round, they're going to be like, okay, let's go. And so that's just a different thing. Now, it's not everybody, because there's been a lot of black belts that would jump in and roll with us, but at that time, so many different people. Maybe it's because you're on an island and, people have that king of the island mentality, or king of that town or that village, and, king of the hill and whatever. But I would try to tell people out there, look, for me, it's Hawaii versus Minnesota. It's Hawaii versus the world. Let's work together and get better. So that's one thing I wish. On the belt side of things, I was a white belt. These people wouldn't roll with me. And I'm like, look, I just want to learn from you. You have a black belt on. If you're not going to be willing at these open mats to work with us, hey, I'm going to take the belt off you.
Yes.
So that wouldn't have been good to do. That wouldn't have been good either. But that was always a frustrating thing. So whenever somebody comes up to me and is like, hey, let's roll, it's like, all right, let's go. And I'll work with them on things. I end up, and Sean and I talk about this too. We go to open mats a lot. And half the time we end up working with other people that are at different gyms. And I love it. Like, even if their gym is 3 miles down the road, sweet, I want to help you. I don't know. But that's a different mentality, I think, that Sean and I have with what we do here. It's a little bit different than some places. And, we've I guess from our paths of us both bouncing around the world through military and, sports, for me, that we have a true passion for it. And we want to share that with people. We want to teach practical things. We have a lot of guys that are in law enforcement or former military guys, and like practical jiu-jitsu is kind of where we fall into. I understand there's some people, you're a bit older or you're a bit more fragile or you're not much of a competitive type person. Hey, then the martial arts side of jiu-jitsu, that's a good thing for those people too, but I still, if you have a black belt in the martial arts side of jiu-jitsu and a competitive white belt comes over to you, hey, show them something. Work together, and hopefully that white belt doesn't smash on that practice or the the gentle jiu-jitsu person. But
well, it's being a student of the art and
right.
staying a student of the art, right? If you truly are a student of the art, even after black belt, then it. I love it when somebody, regardless of rank, comes in that I've never rolled with and exposes a weakness in my game or shows me something I've never seen before. Because like I want to do this shit until I can't move anymore. So I don't want to get to a point where I have an answer for everything, because then it's going to get really boring really fast.
Yeah.
I enjoy the challenge and the puzzle, and I know obviously you're the same way. Rob's the same way. So no, I love it. Have you seen crossover from jiu-jitsu into wrestling on the competitive side of wrestling at all?
Not really. A few people do something here and there. And I think there's quite a few people nowadays that could do that. I mean, I remember working with BJ back in the day, and we were doing some wrestling, and BJ did something, and I was just like, I was like, dude, what did you just do? And he showed me, and he actually taught me something of wrestling. He didn't know what he was doing, but look, I was a multiple-time national champion at the time, and I've got somebody I'm working with, granted, super high-level grappler, but he hadn't wrestled, and he did something, and I went, okay. So jiu-jitsu is slowed. To me, jiu-jitsu can slow things down a bit, that you can focus more on the technical side of things. And that helped me in wrestling, because wrestling is a lot of the time 100%, you're just banging on each other. And jiu-jitsu taught me to kind of slow down a little bit, kind of focus more on the technique side of it, the leverage here and there and that. And I mean, BJ taught me some wrestling. I mean, that no wrestling experience, I was willing to learn from him.
Well, that's interesting though, because you see a lot of wrestling obviously integrated into modern day jiu-jitsu, and it's huge. I know it's come big time into mine, and I love it. I wish I would have wrestled in high school. Looking back,
BJ would have done some damage in the wrestling side of things for sure if he would have focused on wrestling. But I think what happens is, especially when you get to a higher level, if you're focusing on jujitsu, boxing, and wrestling, it would be tough for you to jump into one of those sports and just
Right.
compete at that high level because everybody else in that sport is really focusing on that one thing. And that's kind of what held me back from learning so much jujitsu is I was so focused on wrestling that I didn't want to put my time and energy into a different sport, even though there's some similarities. But I was trying to make the Olympic team. I didn't want to put any energy or focus into something that wasn't going to help me keep at the top level of that game, right? But yeah,
I guess I just always wondered if a wrestling program would benefit from having a jiu-jitsu coach on the side during some practices to kind of help develop some of those like fringe areas. You know what I mean?
for sure. I think that's a great idea, and I think a lot of wrestlers. You look at Bo Nickel, you look at any of these more recent wrestling people that have gone into the MMA world or the jiu-jitsu world. I think they know it. I think they see it and they're like, "Oh, all right."
Hmm.
There's a lot of things in the jiu-jitsu side that I use in wrestling. Front headlocks. That's one thing that I've been known for in the wrestling side of things is a front headlock. Well, my front headlock I owe to jujitsu because of the way that I've done it, where it creates more of a choke that people don't think about on the wrestling side. But I've learned some different things from jujitsu that definitely work in the wrestling side. So that's interesting. I've never thought about an actual jujitsu person going to assist a wrestling team, but it makes sense. Makes sense to me. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I do love the crossover because like when you talk about the inverse, because I remember a few years ago when my students like, hey, I'm working on this stuff. Are you familiar with cradles? I'm like, am I? Heck yeah. Like, no, but it's cool because now it's a different problem because, at the time, still been doing it for like 13 years that time. Nobody has ever cradled me
Yeah.
in a jujitsu match or practice or anything. And then like it's one of those like, why aren't we doing cradles to
Yeah.
like get
Hey,
people in good position?
I shouldn't say this
Like,
because it's going to give away a secret, but do you
okay.
know what leg laces are in wrestling?
Yes.
Dude, leg laces make people tap in jujitsu all the time. It's really funny. It's one of these things where they don't know what you're doing. And really, in wrestling, you don't tap to a leg lace, you just get rolled with it. And it's like, so
Yeah.
there's not so much, if you fight it, it becomes more dangerous. But if you don't fight it and just roll with it, like now you're getting points in the wrestling side. But in
Yep.
jujitsu, same with I've had people tap when you put them in a cradle too, because it's a unfamiliar space for them that they're like, whoa, what is going on? Tap, tap. And you're like, dude, just so you know, here's what I was doing. I'll show it. And they're like, oh, okay, got it. I thought you were about to blow my knee out. And I'm like, no, 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 no. So that's funny. The cradle too. I mean, there's a lot of things like that that are fun to play with. You know? Yeah.
No, it's good. I do like the crossover. Like it's
Mhm.
still such a cool thing for me because like I've been doing a lot of judo recently and incorporating that into my jujitsu and vice versa. Like it's kind of a interesting puzzle to solve on that end too because like
Yeah.
it's all grappling. It's just different rule sets and things like you said, but stuff works really well in some other realms and put it all together, you get some good grappling there. So
Yeah.
with your program there, do you have a separate wrestling like preps or like jujitsu preps or like competition prep for whatever sport you're going for?
Do you mean for our members? Is that what you're
Yeah.
talking about? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, we basically run our schedule. We'll have wrestling practice a couple times a week, then we have jujitsu practice a couple times a week. But I tell our members like, hey, if you're a jujitsu fighter and you are going to compete, jump into wrestling. Jump into the wrestling practice. Learn some of those things. It's going to help you. And the same for the wrestlers. I'm like, hey, jump into some of the jujitsu sessions so you can learn a couple of these little tricks from there as well. So yeah, we keep it spread out where we have multiple wrestling sessions a week, multiple jujitsu sessions a week, and then we have a couple open mats. And then leading up to a competition, we try to get more of our competitive crew to jump into more of a consistent training and where we focus on some mat strategies and bring the competitive side of wrestling into this too, where our practices will be more high paced. So people always talk about, wrestling, those are such tough practices, and they are. They're very fast paced. So I'll take that, and that's how I run a jiu-jitsu practice. So for I all these different gyms that I first started going to in jiu-jitsu, and I was just trying to learn more about the sport. I'd go in there, and it's like I didn't even sweat for an hour. And granted, that's okay for some people, but for those that are competing, like we need a higher pace thing. So I would run more of like the 2 minute drills, like okay, guard pass, you got 2 minutes, as many guard passes as you can get. So that's what we do in wrestling. Like, hey, as many takedowns as you can get on your partner, 2 minutes, ready to go, like a 30-second break. Okay, back at it. Number two, this is your turn. You're doing as many takedowns as you can get. But we do the same with guard pass, sweeps, which brings me up to something like, oh, this jujitsu guy out here, he sent Sean a message. I don't know if Sean ever told you about this. I don't remember it all, but this guy sent Sean a DM and was like, hey, you guys are talking about a reversal. That's a sweep. It's not a reversal. And I was like, but when I'm explaining it to wrestlers, if I tell a wrestler, hey, sweep that person, a wrestler's going to be like, what? Like foot sweep? What do you want me to do? And it's like, but if I tell a wrestler, hey, get a reversal on that person, they're going to do a sweep, you know? And
Yeah.
so we were just explaining something like that. And this guy, I don't sent this message, and Sean and I were like, about ready to go dojo storm the dude. But, gosh, like this guy just he wouldn't let it go. And, we finally ran into him at a tournament and just talked to him a little bit. I wanted to take him down, but God, like that's just the thing. There's so much. Yeah, we have enough with politics in the real world anyway. Like, quit bringing it into the sports side of things. Like, let's, dude, you're a black belt in jujitsu, and you're gonna tell me that, we're working reversal. Like, you're telling somebody to reverse somebody that has no jujitsu experience. You're telling, hey, reverse that person, and that wrestler is like, oh, reverse him. And then after they reverse him, you're like, hey, that was just a sweep that you did. It's just crazy. I mean, getting caught up on so many things like that. And then I found out that this guy's gym is like a couple miles away from ours. And it's like, so then it was like, oh, okay, I see what he's doing here.
Yeah.
Come on, dude. Come on, man.
But no, you're
Well,
right. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Randy.
no, I was gonna say effective communication for a coach is exactly what you're talking about. So what does it fucking matter if you call it a sweep or reversal? If your people understand what you're saying and can cause it to happen, that's what matters.
Yeah. Hey, I'm gonna have Sean shoot you guys that the messaging for that. And goodness, like we were just shaking our heads and we're like, and I'm going, this dude is trying to. So I sent the guy a message. I was like, hey, how long have you wrestled for? And he's like, well, I've never wrestled. And I was like, okay, dude, come on, homie. I don't know.
You could have also hit him with a okay, well, what's this submission? And then hit him with like one of the seven other terms for like key lock that I've heard it called. So
yeah, I know. But you deal with that, and that's just one of those things where like we've hosted so many open mats. Like that guy, honestly, come on over here. I'd love to work with you. I'd love to show you some wrestling. Like honestly, and not even in a bully way. Like, dude, I love the sport. Let's have some respect for each other. Let's grow it together. Like one of the toughest guys I've ever rolled with is he has a gym just a couple miles from us, Brandon Bergeron. This dude is so fun to roll with. Talk about that puzzle that we were talking about earlier. Dude, he's got a gym right down the street. But you know what? I have nothing but respect for that dude. He'll throw down. We were working with each other and explaining things. That's how it should be. Like nothing but respect to that person. If I ever have the chance and somebody's like, you know what, this gym isn't a great fit for us here at Wrestle Jitsu, I'd be like, dude, Brandon is right down the street. Go to that dude because he's awesome. Good person, tough dude. And sad that you run into the other side of that too, and it's, yeah.
yeah, it's unfortunate, but it sounds like you and Sean definitely are navigating the waters in the correct way, like handling stuff like that. But
so the dojo storm wouldn't have been a good idea.
Look, I would be a liar to say I have not done that before. You're like, you want to talk? Yeah. Let's figure this out, dude. Like let's settle this. But no, but unfortunately, our time is up now, and we really do appreciate you coming on the show, Jake. So before we go, though, where can people find you on social media and stuff like that?
Yeah, so on Instagram, WrestleJitsuMN, It's not wrestle jujitsu. Everybody always like, even they'll read my hat and they're like, "Oh, wrestle jujitsu." I'm like, no, that just says wrestle jitsu. Come on, but it's a tongue twister for a lot of people. But wrestle jitsu MN, we're on Facebook. Wrestle jitsu. You know what? People ever want to hear about some different techniques in wrestling or any if I can ever be of help in any way, whether you're in Minnesota or out of it, more than happy to explain some different things or show some technique. Love sharing the knowledge, love sharing the passion, and yeah, appreciate the time, guys.
Of
When are you guys
course.
coming out here, by the way? We got a lot of snow coming, so you might want to, you know.
I talked about it. I talked to Sean about it too. It's like I'd like to get out there sometime New Year, obviously. Maybe without the snow, but I do miss me and Sean's roles. So and then I need to get ragdolled by you. So just get it all done in one weekend. Yeah.
There we go. If you come up right now, we can get ice fishing in. You know,
Whew.
it's fun. We've
I'll
got a
say
property. We've got a property up north. I brought some mats out there too. So this summer we plan on doing little jujitsu retreats, wrestling retreats out there. So up in Alexandria, Minnesota, about 2 hours away. My wife and I bought a 3 acre island out there, and
Wow.
yeah, we've been working on it and got a lot of things to come with that. So
I'll come up there when it's warm.
you have a couple weeks of that in the middle of the summer. And other than that, but
Nice. But no, Jake, seriously, we do appreciate you coming on the show and, sharing your story with us. And of course, may have to have you back on, especially if
Oh
we have
yeah.
to talk about ice fishing and this
yeah.
jujitsu
I
retreat thing.
feel like we barely scratched the surface of your stories. I definitely want to get you back on. This
We
was a
could
fun
do the
episode.
7 hour podcast. Let's do this, guys. Come on. Now, and then also Jason Godwise, just in case anybody's fact checking. His name was Jason Godsley. This is the guy I told you guys should have on.
Yeah.
Jason Godsley. But he and his wife merged their last names to make up Godwise. His wife fought Tanya Harding in a celebrity boxing match too.
Oh,
So, yeah, dude,
oh, okay.
this guy is something else. Like you'll need a 10-hour podcast for him, but yeah. So
Cool. Well, we're gonna have to hit him up then. I need to hear about this
Yeah.
Tanya Harding fight as well.
Agreed. Agreed.
oh yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's been another episode of the Big Jiu Jitsu Show. I'm Rob,
I'm Randy.
and we'll catch you guys next time.